Hey crafty friends, this is Chelsea, and today I want to walk you through my process of starting a layout when I know I want to use a sketch. So the first thing I like to start off with are my photos. What do I want to scrapbook? I had a collection of photos that are very recent, and these are all from my daughter's first time riding her new bike that she got for her birthday. Sometimes I am going back and scrapbooking stuff from a long time ago. Sometimes it's very recent. I hop all over the place when I'm scrapbooking. It really just depends. So I decided I wanted to scrapbook these photos. And first of all, I looked at them on my computer, saw that pretty much all of them were portrait. So I knew I was looking for a sketch that had a lot of portrait photos in it. And I also looked for similarities. How many of my photos were just retakes of something like super similar? How many did I want to actually use that were different enough that it doesn't look like I'm just scrapbooking multiples of the exact same photo that are slightly closer, slightly farther away? And I narrowed it down to these 4 photos. So then once I know that's kind of what I'm looking for, then I went to my sketchbook. This is the new Creative Design Team Volume 4 12 by 12 sketchbook. So we got all new sketches that just launched in here. And I flipped through looking for some sketches that are featuring portrait photos. Now I have this one inside this coil book. So it's actually paired with our volume 3 12 by 12 sketchbook, which was designed to work perfectly with 6 by 6 papers. You can use any size papers you want, but sometimes it's challenging to use 6 by 6 paper on 12 by 12 layouts. And this sketchbook was geared towards solving that problem. But there's so many pages in here that I was able to fit 2. And these are just like top loading page protectors that I can just slide them into. If you're in Canada, I got this at Dollarama, but you can also print off and put into a binder. You get the digital file and then you can house it whatever works best for you. I've also gotten them printed and bound into like a coil binding at Staples. That works really good as well. So as I was flipping through, I got to these 2 pages. Funny enough, these are side by side, so page 11, page 12 in the new sketchbook. And these both met the criteria of having lots of portrait photos. This one's a little bit different because we do have a 3 by 3 in here as well, but same kind of idea. I would have room for 4 photos. And I think one of these, yeah, this one's farther away and I could crop it down to make it fit in a smaller spot. So that would be fine. I could also take one of these and print it as a 3 by 4 and then crop that 3 by 4 into a 3 by 3. So both of these are in the running for the sketch that I want to use today. And so my next step, once I kind of have an idea of sketch, I have an idea of photos, is to then take my photos and find what pattern paper to use. Now, my first stop is usually always new patterns. If I have new papers that either I have not used yet or I haven't used much of, I'm going to look at those first and see if there's anything that works with my photos. You can see here, I have some colors going on. In her pants, there's all kinds of colors. There's like yellow and orange and this deeper pink. We have purple. We have lots of colors going on here. This purple here is more of like a cool toned, blue toned purple. We have hot pink. We have this kind of like mauvey pink. There's so many shades of pink in this set of photos. So I pulled out the new Florals In Bloom collection. This is one of the ones from the annual catalog, and I have not used it a bunch yet. I think I've made like 1 card out of this pack. And it is bright and summery, and I thought it would go perfect for kind of this outdoor feel. We also have several different shades of pinks and orange, yellow. There's even some purples in here, although it's not the same tone of purple. But I felt like there was enough variation in this collection that it could get me close to where I want to go. So then, next step is going back to my sketches and being like, okay, with these patterns and these photos, what would look the best? Do I want to have a little bit of the patterns showing? Because here, you know, we have little strips, but we have a lot of white space. Or do I want something busier? Do I have very calm photos? There's not a lot going on in the photos, and I can have lots of pieces of pattern paper. I mean, I could substitute some of those strips with cardstock as well. They don't all have to be pattern paper. but you can kind of get an idea of what that would look like. I probably would not use all of these together, but the way I have them laid out here gives you kind of an idea of what it would look like behind these photos. So let's see, even if I would grab these, put them on like a piece of white, just to give them a little, breaking them up from the background, gives you a really good feel of how that would look all laid out together in all these strips. And personally, it's a little much for me, especially since the color matches are not perfect. If the colors matched my papers like really spot on, I might be more likely to go that route. But I'm thinking because the colors are just a little bit different, like the purple is more of a cool tone, and we don't really have this kind of like aqua color in here. We have a little bit that does work. You know, it's not as bright as this. It's a little bit more muted. The color match is not exact. And so then I'm more likely to, I think, go for this pattern because we have just those strips, little chunks of the patterns, and then maybe pick one of the patterns that goes a little bit better with these photos to put on this like piece C here. And then maybe use like some cardstock, or I could use cardstock here and maybe have a little bit of pattern showing on the piece B that just has that little dark border showing around. So I have options there. The other thing I was thinking too is I think because I already have my photos printed and I'm kind of making this decision on the fly as I'm going, I'm thinking I want to keep 2 4x6. So I have 3 4x6 photos and then 1 either 3x3, or I could even make it bigger and put a 3x4 in here. And that way I wouldn't need to trim it down. I would just need to print one of these smaller. So I think that's what I might do. Instead of having this little area right here, just put a 4x6 in there. So those are kind of my initial thoughts. I will cross the title and embellishments when I get to them. But for now, I want to pick which papers I'm going to cut up into strips. So first off, let's start out with white cardstock bases, because I think that will help with kind of our bright, busy patterns. And I'm just going to lay these out here and just see what I think. I really love this. This is Secret C. To me, it's a very good neutral. I just want to try out some different combinations. I'm going to take another piece of white so I can kind of like mask it off and can see what that would look like without having like this whole chunk of paper down there. So it just helps me see a little bit more accurately what those patterns would look like together. Also keeping in mind our photos. Now this one with all the green, I was kind of thinking I could use this one behind my photos because the green, although it's not like super restful because we have, you know, pattern on it, it doesn't really clash with what we have going on. And it would bring out the green in this pattern. There's a little bit of that bright green in here as well. I have a few other patterns here that I like. So I'm just gonna pull this one out, tuck this one in, see how that looks. It's going pretty strong on the yellow, and I really don't have a lot of yellow in my photos. Okay, that's kind of nice. I do like this pattern with my colors. They're a little bit softer, and I think that does go better. Maybe it's the brightness of this pattern that's kind of throwing me off. Let's see if we go like this. Okay, I want to try one more thing. Let's see if we do this, because that would bring in a few more of the different colors that are in here. I'm completely ignoring this very bright blue in her shoes. I don't have anything that coordinates with that, so I'm just gonna ignore it. I do like this a little bit better. I feel like this is more harmonious. The colors go a little bit better. And of course, this will change depending on what part of the paper you're using. You know, you'll get different, you might have some yellow, you might have some orange. Maybe I wanna make sure the yellow and orange are in there. You know, I might want to cut like a different part of my paper to make sure I'm getting the yellow and orange. And then I need to decide on this green. I'm not sure that I love that. I want to try out some cardstock colors. So I have the double-sided piece of Secret C. So this is the two-tone cardstock that Stampin' Up! Is offering now. I don't have this in every color yet. I do have way more colors in the 8.5 by 11. This is Cloud Cover, which is another color of the year. Funnily enough, it does match my sky that day pretty closely. We were having lots of smoke from forest fires, so it actually kind of blends in a little bit with that. So that could be an option, especially with a white mat. So that could be one option, a little bit more neutral. I could also go more bright, so I could go with this garden green. I probably will matte. I wish I would have printed these with a white border, but I wasn't thinking when I printed them. So I will need to trim them down and add them onto a layer. Now, if I went this way, I'm not sure I would want the Secret C behind it, because then it almost feels just a little bit too dark. Could maybe use that as a border. Now the grass I have in there is a little bit more yellow green, so we could also try Granny Apple Green. Now I do find sometimes the 8.5 by 11 colors are a little bit more intense. I was able to find some Granny Apple Green that is in the two-tone. I had it in like a combo pack. So I have this side, but I also have the lighter side. I might like that even more. With a white border around our photos. I feel like that just brings so much more life to my photos, to the page. It just really pops it and draws your eye into the center. Now I'm not sure if I want to leave this plain or if maybe I want to stencil a design on it, maybe do some stamping. I'm pretty sure in my collection somewhere I have a bike stamp, maybe stamp some bikes on the background. Just because I'm starting with cardstock doesn't mean it needs to stay plain. I can definitely add even just tone on tone design. And because I'm using the light side of this cardstock, then I could stamp in ink and I would get a little bit of contrast, but it wouldn't be as contrasted as using a darker green ink color. And that is one of the things I love about two-tone cardstock is just the flexibility of it. You have just that many more options. So I think this is the way I'm going to go. I'm going to cut my pieces and then I'll be right back. I have cut everything down and everything's just laying here. Mounted these onto the white photo mats, and I decided to keep this one as a 3x4 because I didn't want to have to reprint. I just cut it down from that 4x6. I'm thinking I'm going to use this party banner alphabet again for my title. I've been really stuck on this lately, just really loving it, and I think I might get the mini alphabet and try and do like the first part. So I want to put first ride. I could spell it going over top or maybe going up. I just have to cut out the letters and see for spacing how that's going to work. But that's what my thinking is for my title. I'm still not 100% sold on this green. It is so bright and just really draws your eye in, which is good because it's drawing my eyes into the photo. And now keeping in mind, I am going to cluster in some florals and things, so that should help. It's just a little bit maybe stronger than I would like. I did try the green in the background instead of white, and I didn't like that either. So we're gonna stick with this for now. I did go and grab a stencil from my stash. This is an old Close to My Heart one. It has kind of graduated circles, so they're a little bit bigger at the bottom, and then they get tinier towards the top. And I was thinking I might add this on to this piece here with the larger at the bottom and then getting smaller towards the top, just to break up that green a little bit. The circles aren't quite as close together as I would like. There'll still be quite a few gaps, but I'm thinking maybe I should use white. Rather than going tone on tone with green, maybe I'll start with white, see how that looks, and if I don't like it, I'll add green on top of it. So I am going to use pigment ink, and I will need to let this dry for quite a while because pigment ink needs time to dry. You can add like embossing powder over top to speed that process along and not have to wait for it. I think I'm just gonna let it air dry and see how long that takes. Stampin' Up! Does have white pigment ink as well. I just don't have that pad yet, so I'm just going to use my Close to My Heart one. I do want to start the circles off the edge, so I'm just using a little ink blending tool, and I'm going to go ahead and just start pouncing that over the stencil. Now, I did not wash the stencil first, so I'm hoping that it doesn't have a bunch of ink or something on it already, because that will dilute the white. Now, if I wanted these to be bold white polka dots, I would need to use embossing powder. So put like Versamark through, or even pigment ink, and then add white embossing powder, and that would give me bold white. Pigment ink is a little bit softer, and you're gonna get a softer, less stark result, which in this case is exactly what I'm looking for. I'm doing a combination of twisting and pouncing through the stencil because I want to get a fairly solid application. And I'm just going to keep going until I have this all filled. Here is the finished results of what this paper looks like now. I only did one layer of the white pigment ink, and you can see how some spots are a little bit lighter, some are a little bit darker depending on how heavily I applied it, and I love it. This is exactly what I was going for. I wanted something subtle, something lighter. That's why I didn't use like a darker green colored ink. I wanted something to lighten and break up the green, and this worked perfectly. This is exactly what I wanted. I'm not sure how long it actually took for it to dry because I was busy doing other things. And you can see I even have a little bit of variation with white that piled up around the edge of the stencil. I don't mind at all. It gives it a little bit more imperfect, sort of rustic look to it, which totally fits with being outside biking. I went for dots because I wanted something to break up all the florals. We do have this little dash pattern, but I thought this would be a good one just to kind of add a symmetrical print that would break up the solid green, and it turned out exactly how I wanted it to. So that's awesome. I went ahead and stuck these down. All of these pieces are now attached. The only thing that you'll want to keep in mind is to not stick down this bottom piece all the way. Let's see if I can get this up here so I can show you. So we have tags here that need to go under this little piece where the journaling is going to go. And so I cut 2 little tags out of Bubble Bath cardstock from Stampin' Up, and I used the Buildable tags die from Close to My Heart, and I used this smaller size tag. This looked approximately the right size, and so I just cut 2 of those out. And I think what I will do is I'm going to arrange them in this pocket however I want them to be, and then I'm just going to journal on top of them. Rather than trying to journal and then make it work, I want to know exactly where things are going to be overlapping. I'll probably start on the left one and then right on the right one. I did use the party alphabet dies. I've been kind of obsessed with these lately. I just love how big and chunky they are, and I love mixing fonts with them. Now, my last couple of videos, I have mixed in a print and cut, very like scripty font, and I was so tempted to do it again and have the word first kind of scripty over the word ride, but I'm like, okay, I need to switch it up a little bit. I can get really stuck in a rut of like doing the same technique over and over again just because I love it, which there's nothing wrong with that. But this would be the 3rd one in a row, so I thought I would switch it up for you guys. I cut the letters ride out of Cloud Cover cardstock, which is one of the in colors, and then I cut the word first out of Bubble Bath cardstock using the mini alphabet die. And so my thought for this is to have the word first going up the side like this, and this just fits. Of course, I will straighten that out when I actually stick it down. And I'm still debating what I want to add on the letters. If I want to emboss them, maybe put them through an embossing folder, or if I want to stamp on them. I was thinking about maybe adding some clouds to them. I thought that would look kind of fun and be sort of outdoorsy. But what I know for sure is that I do want to add some florals. So in the sketch, we have embellishments here, embellishments up here, and then some more down here. So that's going to kind of be my rough estimation of where I'm going to put my embellishments as well, except for this one. Because of my 3x4 here, I kind of want to fill this whole little section, because if I put my embellishment right here, I'm going to have a little dead space right there. So I am going to keep that in mind when I'm putting in florals. This set comes with some standalone dies. so you can just cut straight from cardstock. And then there's also dies to cut out stamped images. So I've already mounted some on blocks, and I did go ahead and cut some of the solid ones already. So here I have this large flower. I did bubble bath cardstock and fresh freesia. So this is bringing in kind of like a soft purple color, which I thought would go nicely with the colors I have going on in the photos. And then I also did Lemon Lolly, which is the lightest yellow color, and Daffodil Delight, just for like some tint and shade. So we have lighter color, darker color, and just kind of makes that layer pop a little bit. And I hope these will be enough. I cut a whole stack of leaves from this set with the garden green cardstock. Now, a lot of time when I am doing my die cuts, I actually use the solid core cardstock from Stampin' Up, so the 8.5 by 11. And that's what I use for my die cuts because it is a little bit thicker and sturdier. And I really like when I turn it on the side, I don't see any white core. So yes, I am collecting the full Stampin' Up color palette in both 8.5 by 11 and the 12 by 12 two-tone cardstock because each one has its own job. I much prefer the two-tone cardstock for like the layers on my scrapbook pages. It's lighter, it's thinner. We have the two different shades to work with. But when it comes to die cutting, this is my preference. So I'm going to grab some white willow cardstock here. I'll just scooch that aside for now. So I want to include some of the colors from the pattern paper in my stamping and also bring in the colors that are in my daughter's pants or in the photo. So I'm using Timid Tiger. I'm going to bring in just some like scratch printer paper here because I'm going to want to stamp off. And you know what? I'm going to start with the detail layer first. Sometimes I forget to do that, but I do find it's easier to line up these two-step images if you start with the detail layer. So that is full strength, and then I'm going to stamp off and do second generation ink for the lighter layer. So there's our little flower buds. And then I do want to bring in the stems for this. So I'm grabbing garden green. And I'm not sure if I want the full strength ink or a second generation, like lighter impression. If I use the lighter one, that will create some variation with these die cut ones. Whereas this, once this dries, this is going to lighten a little bit and they'll be fairly similar. But this I think will create a nice look kind of layered together. So I'm going to do both and then see which one I prefer. And while I have that green out, I also need to do the single stem. I think I should have enough room to squeeze it in here at the bottom. And then I'm going to bring in the yellows as well. I have Daffodil Delight and Lemon Lolly. So let's do that detail layer in the darker yellow. And then we'll do the more solid layer in the Lemon Lolly. There are coordinating dies for all of these. It makes it easy to cut out, and I love that these ones that have the three, there's two different types of flowers in this set that have 3 buds, and both of those cut out all in one pass, which makes things really easy. I do have a magnetic plate on my Big Shot machine, but I like using washi tape just in case, especially when I'm doing multiple dies at one time, keeps them from sliding around. I'm just going to go ahead, put these through my Big Shot, and then I'll be right back. All right, here's our die cut pieces, and I will make more of these if I like how they look for our clusters. So on the die cut, there's like little spots for you to put your glue so that your flowers can hold on. And I'm just going to put the biggest one at the top. And I don't think it really matters, but I think I'm going to put the smallest one on the left and the slightly bigger one on the right. Okay, so there's our little cluster of flowers, and I think when we put those together with the greenery that I die cut and then the flowers, there'll be some nice variation between the two. And then here for this one on the single, I'm just going to put that on there. And if you wanted the center of your flower to be darker, you could also use Timid Tiger for that darker layer instead of having yellow on yellow, because it does lighten up a little bit after it dries. But there's that. I'm gonna go ahead, make some more flowers, and then we can start putting these clusters together. I just stuck on this detail layer of this flower with little dots of glue on the back of the detail layer. It's a little bit finicky, but I think the overall look is worth it. I'm not exactly sure 100% where I want these, but I like to place my largest flower or my largest object for my clusters first, and then work out from there. So I think we'll do something like that. Then I have some little orange flowers here for all 3 of my clusters. Okay, and then I want to have one coming out here. One thing with these stems that kind of come up like this, to me, they almost look a little strange, like if they're pointing down or on an angle too much. I do prefer them kind of coming out the top and still pointing upwards. I feel like they look a little bit better. And I did decide to go with the stems that were the 2nd generation stamping, so like the softer green. And let's just turn that a little bit. And then of course I have all my leaves. I don't know if I want to add another yellow flower here because my big flower is yellow. We'll see if it needs it. We can definitely have some clusters that are bigger than others. They don't all need to be the same size. Quite often I will have like a large, medium, and small cluster. I want to be careful that I don't cover up where my title needs to go because I don't have a lot of extra space there. So I want to make sure those leaves don't come over it. My goal with these leaves is just fill in anywhere where I think it needs a little bit of fullness. Or of course, by these big flowers, they look like they're just floating if they don't have some leaves to ground them. So I cut quite a few of these die cut leaves, and you could always mix in other ones. There's actually like very large solid leaves that come in this set. I just wanted to stay away from using the granny apple green color because my background is that color. So I thought it would keep it simple, just use one style of leaf and then stick with that one color. This cluster, I also need to make sure I'm not going over the edge of my page. So I might need to slide this in a little bit. The embellishing process really is all about playing, trying things out. You really don't know how something's going to look unless one, you've made it before, or you try it out and you can see if you like it or not. Now, something else that I was thinking of adding to this page before I stick anything down and commit, I pulled out these gold rub-ons. You can see I've already been using this pack quite a bit. There's gold and silver in here. You get 2 sheets of each design. So it's 4 sheets of gold and 4 sheets of silver total. And I like to just cut up the sheet as I use a design. I just cut it out, transfer that design so that I'm not accidentally transferring other parts of designs that I don't want to. So I did cut out this little like checkered design, and I thought that might look nice coming out from behind my cluster here. This one kind of made me think of a tire track, and I thought, wouldn't that be cool if I could add that to my letters and just kind of have it going on an angle. I have another one of these still in the package, so I'm hoping maybe, it's going to be hard because it's like a very directional design, but hopefully I could make it go across some of the letters. I think that would look really neat. And I would do that instead of inking them or embossing them. And I was thinking maybe some little like splatter marks over on this side. I know I have some like little dots and things in here. Those are usually the first ones that I use up because I love all kinds of little splatters and things. And it's no different with these gold rub-ons. I haven't actually used the silver ones yet, so I will probably need to do that soon. I've been kind of on a gold kick. See if maybe we can just like overlap that a little bit. Or maybe I want it to come out this side instead, have that one there, and then have that one there. Or I could bring them closer and just kind of do this whole corner. That would work too. I feel like I could use maybe one more leaf cluster here. And then I think that looks pretty good and I can start gluing things down. When I want to glue things down, I'll pull out these leaves first. I'll glue the leaves in and then I'll just work my way up to the top layer. And sometimes I'll even put this top layer on dimensionals so it's kind of popped up above the rest to add even a little bit more dimension. I could do the same thing here with the orange flowers, put some pop dots under those orange flowers and give it some dimension. So let's go ahead and transfer these rub-ons before I get too far ahead of myself. So this part of the design is sticky. You want to take it so it is pretty side up and then just start rubbing it down. I'm using a foam folder. You could use a popsicle stick, an old credit card, anything that you can really use to just press over top. And then when I peel it off, I want to go slowly and just make sure that I'm transferring the whole design. If I see some that hasn't transferred, then I can just lay it back down and continue to rub over it. Okay, and then once I have that transferred, I can just rearrange my leaves again. And it'll just be that nice little twinkle of gold peeking out from behind here. So then I can go ahead and just start gluing down. All right, here we go. I did make the rub-ons on the word ride work, I think. Just kind of patched together what I had from those two little pieces. And I love how it does look like, kind of like tire tread marks. I like how it turned out. So I popped this up on foam tape. These are down flat. I was debating adding like a little bike on here somewhere, adding it to one of my clusters. This is the only one that I have in my collection. This is from the Gnomes for Summer scrapbooking set. This is one that came over as a crossover project from Close to My Heart to Stampin' Up. And I think I could make it work if I added in some coloring and stuff, but I don't think it's necessary. What I do want to add in is something from my stash. This is an old Close to My Heart set called At the Park, and it says, "Look at me." And I think that is perfect for first bike ride. She was definitely saying that to me while we were going. She's like, "Look at me." So this wasn't her first time riding a bike, but it was first time riding her new bike. And she had like a Strider bike before. So this pedal bike is like kind of a whole new world. Now I don't have cloud cover ink. I really want to bring this cloud cover color over onto this side. I have some in like the sky is very close to that color, but I want to bring it in a little bit more. And so I thought I will stamp in mist ink. Cloud cover, there was some issues with the ink pad. And so it is not being released as a regular ink pad. You can get the little 1-inch stamping spots and the re-inker and do it that way if you want. I have mist ink from Close to My Heart, which is just a little bit darker than cloud cover, but it's exact same tone. So that's what I am using just to kind of fill that gap. Now I just need to trim this down and maybe just banner the end a little bit. There we go, and I'm just going to add that to this page with a little bit of adhesive. Okay, that's basically it. I am going to do my little bit of journaling that I have on here. I don't have a ton to say. It was her first time out on this new bike, so I'm just going to write a few words about that, but I'll give you a close-up. We got beautiful reflection of the gold rub-ons. We have that nice pattern from the stenciling and the white pigment ink, all the texture of our florals, die cuts, and stamping. And we got little hits of gold everywhere, which is nice. I didn't add any gold to this cluster because it's so close to the title that I thought it would just kind of take away from it. So we have our first ride title there. I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you go and check out the new sketchbook. And I will have a link right here where you can check out the rest of the playlist, all the other videos that the creative design team members have been creating. So you can go find some more inspiration for these new sketches. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon with another video.